Daikaiju Network podcast where we have a very healthy obsession with kaiju. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going, everyone?
And so here we are. We are going to discuss the next block of 3 Spectreman episodes. We are covering episodes 7 through 9 here. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yes,
If you're watching this or listening to this either today or tomorrow, if you're watching or listening to us after Halloween, ignore that part. So before we continue, Jason, is there any housekeeping we need to do?
Yeah, definitely some housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button as well as the subscribe button if you see the red button down below the video there to subscribe to our channel, as well as hit the notification bell icon to make sure you get any new notifications whenever we go live or upload any new videos in the future. And as far as finding us, you can find us everywhere in one place at our Linktree URL. Right there on your screen, Linktree/Daikaiju Network. And besides YouTube, we're on the other video platforms listed here, Twitch and Facebook Live. All 3 of those we're streaming live. And as far as Rumble, we don't stream live there, but our episodes that we do live every other Sunday will be available there a day after. And as far as audio versions of our platforms, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And you can find both video and audio versions of our episodes at our own website at daikaijunetwork.com.
And so one thing, Jason, I forgot to bring up before we started was that because it's our last show of October, we usually do a big end of the year special. I want you to start thinking about some things we could do / discuss for our end of the year episode coming up in about 2 months, almost exactly. So
I'll try to come up with something if I don't have any. Things
I have one idea.
Getting in the way.
I have one idea already that I will discuss with you after the show here that I want you to be thinking about a few things anyway. So with that, are we ready to go in and discuss episodes 7 through 9 of Spectreman?
I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. So why don't we just go right into the meat and potatoes of the episode.
All right, so episode 7 is titled "The Black Terror."
Mine is Gokinosaurus Part 1, Smog City.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that this block of 3 episodes is continuing some of the crazy elements that we have seen thus far within the previous 6 episodes of Spectreman. And not only that, I almost get this idea that I think the writers and producers of the show, by this point in the production of the series, started to do something that I was begging Super Ride Productions to do with Ultra 7, and that is to begin to really embrace what you are, and mainly kind of a goofy superhero show, and to go along with that. Now, granted, Spectreman, from the very get-go, has been very goofy and just outlandish in its storytelling and its villains and kind of their MO and what have you. The thing is that there was always this underlying story element of them using Earth's pollution against humanity in order to eventually take over Earth. And to some degree, that still is in play here, as we'll discuss even with this particular episode, because I don't think in episodes 8 and 9 the pollution aspect really plays out to the extent that it does with episode 7 here. But I think what they're doing is they're finally finding their footing. As I've discussed on previous podcasts before, when we're talking about TV series, usually the first handful or so of any TV series can be kind of rough because they haven't found their footing yet. They aren't exactly sure how to approach the story. They aren't exactly sure approach some of the characters, and they're just kind of getting the hang of it finally after a certain point. And usually, kind of when you get between episodes 5 and 10 of a series, you can begin to tell that they are finding their groove. They are beginning to they're beginning to develop a way of telling their stories the way that they want to, and that they're comfortable at and good at, regardless of whether or not you yourself enjoy doing that. And so here, what we get in a general sense with episode 7 is that Dr. Gory sends Karis once again in human clothing. This whole shenanigan thing, I roll my eyes at, but I've learned to accept it. He goes in and unleashes this smog, which has this individual freaking out when it's dark, but also finding out that one of the humans' biggest fears are cockroaches. And after that, it's not really about the smog, which takes up the first maybe 25% of the
yeah.
It ends up becoming getting a cockroach, turning it into gigantic proportions, and unleashing it on Tokyo.
Yeah, let me just interject a little bit because your audio is just still every time you talk, it just gets garbled and everything. So let me just interject here a little bit, just to kind of make sure your audio kind of gets cleared up here. Yeah, as far as the beginning of episode 7, you had the climate team. I sort of forget right now what they're called, but they're on top of this building here, studying the smog and everything. And all of a sudden, smog just suddenly clears up from the city, and then of course Joji suspects that Dr. Gory's behind doing things, and then you had pretty much see Karis capturing all the smog in this small little capsule and everything, and then Dr. Gory hands Karis this, it's like some kind of disc that's just concentrate, like smog concentrate, and then had him go out and unleash it. And then you had Karis go into this government building, unleashing it on a kind of a government personnel and everything. He had the climate team go and investigate, and for some reason with this government guy who's taken to the hospital and just kind of get examined and everything, like for some strange reason whenever they turn off the light, he just starts to panic and everything. I'm not entirely sure like sort of the meaning behind that. Maybe I'm guessing is how much
it's Spectreman.
Like the smog.
That's all you need to know.
Like the smog or anything. And then yeah, like what you mentioned afterwards, that Dr. Gory basically experiments with cockroaches and saying that these insects are pretty much the things that humans are afraid of and everything. And then you pretty much don't really hear anything on the smog or anything, hence the name of, for my DVD with the saying Smog City. It doesn't really relate much after a few or so minutes into the episode, and then basically it comes in with the main title antagonist, Kaiju Gokinosaurus.
Which, by the way, I have to say this about the name Gokinosaurus. Anyone who's familiar with dinosaurs understands that the suffix saurus means lizard or reptile.
Mm-hmm.
Why is a cockroach given a saurus as part of the suffix of its name? This is what we're dealing with, folks, as far as Spectreman.
Yeah, it's just something that I would say the writers there think, oh, it probably just sounds cool or something at the time.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's also part of the name for the original title for this episode. Well, no, episode 7 is for the original Japanese title is called The Killer Smog, and then episode 8 is Gokinosaurus.
Yeah, and I understand that their main audience is children. And trying to sound cool and have cool looking things, that's basically what you want in kids shows. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. But at the same time, I think there's a line that should be drawn too. It's like, okay, you don't call a giant cockroach a name followed by the suffix "saurus" because that's inaccurate. It is. So,
well, my response to it is it's just a kid's show. So
I know, but still, it's wrong, is what I'm saying too. With all this, though, I have to say that this has always been what Spectreman has been about. And it feels like we've gotten further into this series than what we actually have. To me, it feels like we've done 15 or so of these episodes. And no, we're just now getting... We're starting to wrap up the single-digit number episodes.
Starting to get into some of the good stuff.
And... this is what Spectreman's been all about. And yeah, I will criticize, this episode and some of the future episodes, including in this block that we're about to discuss, for asinine things. Because I think, as part of our job as podcasters, is to try to be as objective as we possibly can and to kind of let the listeners and viewers know what they're getting themselves into should they go after these shows and these movies. But at the same time, as I've always stated too, I like some of that crazy stuff. I mainly watch these movies and shows to have a good time. With that said, though, my suspension of disbelief can only go so far, because I am a dinosaur lover. When you call a giant cockroach a Gokinosaurus, I'm like, no, that's wrong. It's just like all of a sudden everything stops. It's like you're in a car and you slam the brakes and, you're getting the whiplash moment.
If you just call it Gokino, I would be fine with it. But yeah,
right. Or Gokino or whatever. Like
with source added to it, I probably said thesaurus there, but I meant to say source.
You know what? But, you wouldn't be even more wrong than what them calling Gokinosaurus. Yeah. Might as well call it Thesaurus. Thesaurus.
But yeah, if they just call it Gokino, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, and I don't know. And again, it's a kid show, and I understand the production time of a lot of these kid shows was very, very short to begin with and all that. But
with this show and the other show that we're reviewing, they're really, really long. Even longer, like just Spectreman itself, it's even longer than Ultraman, the original.
Well,
Ultraman,
yeah.
And Ultra 7.
Yeah. But, here's the thing. These two series that we're covering, even though we've made fun of them at times and have heavily criticized them for various things at points, I think it's safe for me to say that we've both enjoyed them. And even though the last episode that we did here a few weeks ago, we both said at this moment in time we would both prefer Kamen Rider over Spectreman at this point, that could change. I'm willing to say it after watching these 3 episodes of Spectreman that Spectreman, I think, is finally starting to catch its groove. Like I discussed here a number of minutes ago, that the writers and the producers and all that are kind of saying, look, yeah, we have this underlying message about pollution. We still may incorporate that, but I think at this point going forward, that's going to take maybe, we'll find out as time goes on, that may take more of a back seat, and it's just going to be like an Ultraman type of series. And I'm okay with that. Ultra 7 going to that abomination, that thing really, I don't think ever fully embraced the goofiness that it really was.
Or
it continued to try to be serious.
That that, and it just try to find its identity, going back and forth, like you said, with at times going with the serious tones, and then at other times with some comedy in there. Yeah, it just, and then the story itself throughout the show, it just seemed, yeah, they just seemed like they just didn't quite know what to pinpoint exactly, or
I'm gonna say
they wanted to identify the show.
I'm gonna say something that I don't know if I ever said when we discussed that series, is that I think Ultra 7 is a very pretentious show. It tried and thought it was more than it actually was.
Mhm.
And I know some may be tired of us comparing some of the shows that we've recently discussed with that, but I think Ultra 7 is the perfect example of a show that became very pretentious and tried to be more than what it actually was, and didn't embrace just the inherent silliness. And yeah, Spectreman at times is a mess. We've already discussed some of that stuff. Kamen Rider at times is a mess too, but they're fun messes. I have fun watching most of these episodes of these two shows. Ultra 7 I rarely had fun with, because that was something that really tried to be more than it was. It's sort of like, I don't know, an adult dressing up as a member of the Paw Patrol, acting all serious, but not realizing that, no, you are a character off a kid's show, that drives a special vehicle that can do things that regular vehicles to some degree cannot do, and that's what Ultra 7 was, and look, here's the thing. My biggest problem with this particular episode of Spectreman is that they called a giant cockroach Gokinosaurus. It's wrong, but I'm willing to look past that, because you know why? I'm having fun with this episode, and I like the giant cockroach suit. The suit looks fantastic. It moves well. The mandible part and the way the wings operate work really well too. I like this. I'm not a fan of necessarily giant bugfare, because I think it's too easy of a thing to pick out as far as villains go.
And
But
sometimes the design for the suit, the insect suit, like this one, for example, sometimes doesn't always turn out as good as they originally
and not
thought.
just that, just the idea of a giant insect is too easy, because
Or sometimes complex.
Well, it's easy in that, like, okay, you're sitting around at a writer's table and you're trying to find out or figure out what you want to write a movie about, or you want to have a giant villain of some sort. Oh, people hate insects. Let's take a look at, giant fly or a giant spider or something like that. It's too easy instead of sitting down trying to come up with something a little bit more original. And I'm fine with the occasional giant insect thing. The problem is that when, at least in Western cinema, when you go back to the 40s and 50s and even 60s, you find that giant insect films are aplenty. I mean, I've even got some on my shelves back here, and yeah, some of them are fun. No doubt about that. But I enjoy the stuff that has more originality to them when they come up with their creatures. But here, for the purpose of Spectreman, the giant cockroach suit is fantastic, and I think the final battle is a lot of fun too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with I would say the battle before part one ends, it basically is to where that, of course, Kara kidnaps Rita as usual, and then you had Gokinosaurus capturing Nikaya there, who is the government personnel who's got infected by the smog concentrating and just panics after getting into dark rooms or anything of that sort when a room becomes dark from that reaction. And the one thing I wanted to point out, since we haven't discussed this, and I know Kent,
I think I know where you're going.
kind of want to wants to get into this too is that Overlord again he orders Joji that he wants to that they want to experiment on Daikaiju there to figure out the what's caused like the effects and everything on this smog concentrate that he had. So basically sacrificing the guy like a couple or so episodes ago. And I'll just sort of let Kent just kind of go on a little bit of a rant on this one. So
okay, here's the thing. It's going to get worse because this is part 1 of a 2-part episode. The Overlord is going to take it one extra person further in the next episode where he's going to say again, okay, I forget the other person, like Rita or someone else. Like the Overlord again adds another person saying, oh, they're expendable. Like having like 2 people die to save the whole of humanity is better than having, obviously the whole of humanity die just to save 2 people. And so I got this weird thing in my head going where I'm going, okay, then, Overlord, we've heard this from you before. By your logic, you will continue this stupid game of saying one person being killed for your own maniacal purposes is better than the rest. So, okay, let's just assume Joji does follow along with your sick, twisted plan and does so. And he keeps bringing one person in after another each episode. We do this about 5 billion times. Oops, we're down to the last 2 people on Earth. What the hell is going to happen now? Like, are you going to be like, we'll sacrifice this one person to save one? Well, it's too late. The human race is basically dead because you can't fill the Earth with more people with just one person. So you guys are awful. And I'm so desperately hoping that as this series progresses, and I don't think it's actually going to happen, but I would like for it to happen, I want Spectreman to turn on the Overlord and to have the battle there. Because this Overlord throughout the course of just, at this point, 7 episodes, soon to be 8, and maybe 9, is, I think, even more sick and twisted than Dr. Gory is. Because he's always like, oh, you disobey and this and that. He's getting mad at Spectreman. And like I said, I think in our last Spectreman discussion, I said, dude, that's your fault. You built this guy. Isn't it your fault? It's like Dr. Gory getting mad at Karas, but yet he still continues to entrust Karas with these jobs. And then at the same time, they seem to forget, oh, Spectreman has done good, and then for Dr. Gory's position, Karas busted him out of prison on their home planet and helped him get off their home planet. So these guys aren't actually total buffoons and incompetent at what they do. So I hate the Overlord. I consider them a bigger threat to humanity than Dr. Gory, to be quite honest, because this guy is out for blood. I mean, he just almost every episode is like, no, like, kill them. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Just kill this person. And
or it's like we'll just experiment on the causes / effects on this particular situation that this one person has, and we'll just sort of dispose of them afterwards once we figure things out.
Well, and I just,
instead of just healing them right there, finding the antidote and healing the person, and then you have, I would say, ground zero for the true antidote or something.
and my mind went to the fact you were talking about disposing of him. Okay, so let's say he has Nikaya up in the ship and they experiment. They're like, done. They dispose of him by opening up a chute in the spaceship and just push him out. So you see this body plummeting towards her. Someone's driving in the car and smack right on the windshield. Boom.
Or like, I think they're in outer space. Just shoot them into outer space.
That makes too much sense. These overlords are so sick and twisted. I think they would want to put another person in danger. They'll be like, oh, this person got into a bad car accident. Send them up here so we can figure out what's going on. And then they do it all again. Push them out. Oh, no, someone else got into a boat accident. Let's bring them up and do it again. It's this domino effect of the overlord just... I don't know. Maybe he's like Leatherface. He's just going to carve them up one at a time and put their skin on his face or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't like the Overlord. This Overlord is not a good guy. And I think it says something about who you are as an individual if the cyborg that you built has more moral character than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then towards the end, where part 1 ends, for this episode going into episode 8, that Spectreman is kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place trying to figure out who to save, either Rita or Nakaya. And I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I think some of you might know he's going to be saving here coming episode 8, so I'll just save that in a few minutes.
Yeah, we might as well wrap up this episode. So you got final thoughts and a rating here?
Final thoughts on this one. I'd say with episode 7, I think, as you mentioned earlier in the episode, that they seemed, the writers and the staff behind the show, I think they've finally starting to realize of where they want to go with the entire series for this one, and making the story kind of going that route too, and making the story start to be really good for that matter. And I think it's been consistent throughout these 3 episodes as far as the story goes, and making things a little bit more consistent. And I think starting to finally get a formula at this point in time where they're having more of the giant kaiju in here compared to the handful of the first 6 episodes, but I think 5 or 6 started to get to that route, starting to get their kind of the whole formula for the show come together here. And although the first few minutes with this one, I think they were wanting to go somewhere, but then it just seemed like they sort of forgot afterwards. I think that'd be the one thing that'll give a little bit of a ding on this episode. But I would say the rest of it is pretty good. That they're finally getting a giant kaiju in here, although it's a cockroach and everything. And yeah, I think it's starting to become pretty good. So with this episode here, I would give it a B+.
All right. One thing, though, that has always stuck with me so far after the first 9 episodes of Spectreman?
What's that?
Kara stepping on people's heads and smashing them into their bodies. I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. All right. It's becoming even more obvious by this point that the overlords are homicidal maniacs that are willing to let quite a few people die in order to save the majority of the human race. Such a stance explains itself as to how asinine such a philosophy is, but I kept playing this goofy game in my head that the overlords will gradually allow more and more persons to be slaughtered to save humanity until they're down to the final 2 people on Earth. Then what? Anyways, it's weird that the cockroach is named Gokinosaurus, considering that the suffix saurus means lizard or reptile, and well, cockroaches aren't reptiles. I do, however, like the giant cockroach suit. It's weird, too, that it appears the smog was used to find out what humans find to be repulsive, instead of using the smog itself as a weapon. The episode, despite its incredible goofiness and flawed writing and logic, is pretty fun. I gave it a B-. And so, on to episode 8, titled Duo Kokinosaurus.
And mine is just Kokinosaurus Part 2, the Human Subject Directive.
Some of these titles.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you tell us what happens here?
Yeah, so basically, this episode just leaves off where episode 7 ended there, with Spectreman trying to figure out who to save. And of course, he decides to go and save Rita here instead of Nikaya there. And Overlord is like, no, you better say this guy. Just let Rita, just leave Rita to her fate. Basically, is what he actually said. And
to be honest, here's the thing, though. I will say this: Rita, other than being used as a damsel in distress most of the time, really serves no other major purpose for the series.
Yeah. Well, and then with Karis being a gorilla, I mean, you get that trope with the
King
whole
Kong
gorilla kidnapping a damsel in distress thing. So they kind of want to have that sort of trope.
And it makes no sense. It's never explored or explained.
Yeah. And then with Spectreman or Joji still resisting Overlord's orders, he terminates his mission and everything, and forces Spectreman to change back into Joji. And I like this part where Joji goes after Rita and tries to confront.
I'm glad you like that
Karis.
too. That is a highlight. I'm like, oh, you stupid man.
Yeah, it's like Joji tried to beat him up, hit him with like a huge log, and as well as
it just breaks over
which
his
I
head.
have no idea why he had the strength to do it. It's like the boulder is probably about like that big around. I mean, if it's that big around, it's like even you or I, and maybe like even a strong dude who's probably lifted quite a bit of weights, they probably wouldn't even be able to like pick up that sort of rock, because rocks are really heavy for that matter. And yet he was able to carry it all the way from downhill and tries to knock Karis out with it, and Karis just like basically chops the rock in half.
What does it say about me?
Beats the crap out of Joji for like, I would say 4 minutes tops.
What does it say about me, though, that I found some sick fun out of that? Because not only was Joji just so stupid to believe in the first place that he could take on Karis in his human form, but the fact that the way they go about filming him, like you were talking about, this log and then several rocks and boulders, like Karis is just boom, boom, and part of me was wanting to just see Joji's face all bloodied and like,
and with Karis just, while he has one hand occupied, trying to hold on to Rita, he's just standing there, is like sort of bitch slapping Joji. He just like flies back 2 to 3 feet.
And here's the thing: Karis is an alien, so he might even be stronger than a regular gorilla, which gorillas on Earth are how many times stronger than a man? Chimpanzees are 10 times stronger than a regular man. Gorillas have to be like 80 times stronger than a man. It's like, you stupid idiot. You're going after not just a gorilla, which by itself could lift you over its head and like break you in half without too much of a problem. You're going after an alien gorilla, which could even be stronger. I mean, what? You have no gun on you. You have no real weapon, and you're using rotten logs. You're somehow able to lift up 200-pound boulders. You're using regular rocks. You're slow and stupid. I mean, just what the hell were you thinking? I don't understand it, but I found some sick fun in watching it because it was so stupidly entertaining. I'm like, yeah, beat him up.
And then I think it gets to the point to where that when Joji finally is no longer to really get up or anything, that it seems that Overlord felt pity for Joji. It's like, okay, I'll give you back the powers, but on one condition: you still have to bring the guy up no matter what, so we can experiment on him.
Now, what does this remind you of?
I'm guessing there's so many things, but I can't really think of what you're thinking of.
It's either episode 5 or 6 of Spectreman, in which they exile him. Then they get mad at him for having Karas and the other gorilla there. And they're like, well, you weren't supposed to have friends with you, so we will give you your powers back, but you got to go back to Earth and finish your job. It's the exact same thing here.
Although it's a little bit different where Overlord basically felt pity for Joji or slash.
Well, yeah, but it's the same thing. It's like, okay, like you're in trouble. I took the powers away from you. That really was stupid of me because, well, you're a superhero and I made you, and yet I'm punishing you and I'm watching you get your butt kicked for a while. And I'm just like, all right. You're going to have your powers back. But on one condition, you got to go make a beer run for me. Like, I swear, the Overlord has to be the villain in this series. I mean, think about it. He exiles Spectreman to this one planet, and not only gets mad at him, but watches him kind of get the crap kicked out of him for a bit before giving him his powers back, and then saying, on one condition, though, okay. Then something similar happens here. Takes the powers away, watches him make a fool of himself, get the crap kicked out of him again, and then says, all right, you can have your powers back, but you need to do this other thing for me. I mean, doesn't that sound like an abuse of a relationship? And what are you supposed to do in abusive relationships? You're supposed to leave. It's just... It just makes no sense.
But on that regard, later on when Spectreman kicks the crap out of Karas, and as well as defeating Gokinosaurus later on in the episode, Joji doesn't really do anything yet again. For that matter, it's like he was going to, although this time he was supposedly in episodes 5 and or 6 that he was going to do it, but then he sort of changed his mind after that. This time around, I would say he completely forgot about it here. And then he had Nakaya being taken away by doctors or the hospital in a sort of an ambulance, I'm presuming that it was. And then at the end, that the Overlord says to him, with the humans just doing what we were supposed to do, everything's okie dokie here, so we wouldn't have to make any sacrifices.
And not just that, he also says, I will forgive you of your disobedience this time. And I'm going, dude, we're 8 episodes in. He's disobeyed you numerous times, and each time you've gotten pissed at him, and each time later you've said, I'll forgive you this time. This is not the first time this has happened.
It's like, I'm not going to give you
relationship here.
Like, I'm not going to give you a certain amount of strikes, and like, this is strike 2.
You can't take this Overlord seriously when it comes to doling out punishment, other than the fact you darn well know that should he take your power away, yeah, he will watch you get your butt kicked for a while.
And then feel pity for you, giving you the powers back unless there's a condition or a catch-22.
You don't want to go get my groceries? Fine, get your ass kicked for a while. Okay, now I'll give you your powers back. Now will you go get my groceries? Like, it just, I mean... I hate the Overlord. I mean, I hate the Overlord more than I hate Dr. Gory, which is not supposed to happen because Dr. Gory's supposed to be the villain of the series. And it's like, no, it's these guys up here in space.
But
They're the villain.
with Dr. Gory, at least you get quite a bit of entertainment out of him with them doing all these gestures and everything. Even Karis was starting to do it.
He was, yeah. That's the magical thing. Karis was doing them too in the spaceship, like in the middle part of the episode. But here's the thing. You and I have spent how many minutes so far talking about the Overlord? And yeah, we've mentioned Dr. Gory's name, but otherwise we have not discussed him at all in these first 2 episodes. You want to know why? Because he's fine. I think there's more right and sane with Dr. Gory than there is with the Overlord. The Overlord doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Dr. Gory, yeah, he may be a madman, but everything makes sense.
Well, it's like the thing I've been telling you for many years, that when it came to Spectreman, the only thing I can really think of coming out from watching this entire series was Dr. Gory himself just being so entertaining. I just really liked the character and the dubber that voices Dr. Gory in here is, I would say, he's just one of the most fascinating characters in the entire Tokusatsu genre.
Well, yeah, he is. And I think you and I discussed this before on a previous episode where, yeah, he's fantastic. But to me, the things I will not forget so far about this series, again, are Karis stepping on people's heads and pushing them into their bodies. And just how awful the Overlord is. Just the fact that the Overlord, I think, is so much more of a villain than Dr. Gory.
The other thing, too, is that Karis disguising himself as a human with a lot of costumes and everything, and not having anyone being suspect of Karis when he's disguised.
For me, that's secondary. But yeah, I will remember that too. It's like, I don't know. I can't think of anything that would be a perfect sort of comparison for. But just. On the one hand, I love this series because it is so just stupid in so many ways while entertaining. But at the same time, it is so frustrating as well, especially when you're dealing with the Overlords. To me, the Overlords are the most frustrating thing about this entire series so far. And if the Overlords continue to act this way because there's 63 episodes or something like that of this show?
Around that vicinity. Yeah, 63.
If we're going to continue to have this problem with the other however many episodes that are left, and it's a lot, I am going to go crazy because I cannot take any more of these Overlords just being the worst. I mean, they make no sense. They are poorly written. They are, I think, more homicidal than Dr. Gory and Karis are. And
genocidal.
I don't know what to make of them other than the fact that, to me, they come off as villains. They are bad guys as far as I'm concerned. If this was your karate sensei, quit the karate class, because that's not a sensei. That is a serial killer. Like, you gotta get out of there. This is not where you want to be.
But yeah, when it comes to episode 8, there's really not much to add except for, as we mentioned, Spectreman still resisting Overlord's orders, gets his powers taken away. Joji tries to confront Karis, but gets the crap beat out of him. Overlord pities him, gives him his powers back with a catch-22.
Again.
Karis gets the crap kicked out of him this time around. And then Dr. Gory sends out a little bit of a more powerful Gokino source, or just Gokino. And then the two, Spectreman and Gokino, duke it out for the last time. Spectreman defeats him, and Nakaya gets taken, escorted to an hospital, and Overlord's like, "Oh, everything's okie dokie. We don't have to sacrifice anyone." And that's it of the episode.
Yep. that is it.
So if there's anything else you want to add, or you want to just go into the final thoughts for episode 8.
Let's just go to final thoughts.
Yeah, so with this one, again, not much to add for this one. Just a little bit more of an extension to episode 7, to know what's going on after it left. Episode 7 left off, and and then everything went okie dokie. No sacrifices made here.
No sacrifices.
Yeah, and I think everything gets wrapped up in this 2-parter episode here. So, and I don't know, with the subject title for part 2 where it says the human subject directive for my DVD, I'm not sure what that entails for this one. But yeah, for this episode 8, I would give it a B+ as well.
So I would usually read what I wrote down, but I'm seeing what I have written here are basically things we have kind of discussed at length already for this episode. So what I'm going to say is that very, very goofy, silly episode. The overlords are homicidal maniacs that need to be destroyed. The fight with Spectreman and Gokinosaurus is absolutely entertaining. And with all that said, at least when I got done watching the second episode for this batch here, it was beginning to remind me of the original Ultraman in many of its episodes, and also Johnny Sokka when we covered that here a couple of years ago. And that's a good thing, because I am a fan of those two shows, and I think those two shows, once again, by and large, fully embraced what they were and realized just how silly and goofy they were and went with it. And I think finally Spectreman, hopefully, fingers crossed, that is going to continue to move forward as we go on with the final 43 episodes, or however many we got left to do in the series. And I am beginning to start to fall in love with it. I think Kamen Rider at this point may have some competition now with Spectreman for me. I really am starting to enjoy it. There's still some logical issues that are a little bit difficult for me to get past, but by and large, I like some of the stupid. On some level, I like stupid, as long as it's done in a way to where you can kind of tell that they understand what they're doing is stupid. And I think on some level they do know that it's just batshit crazy. And I'm okay with that. This one, I'm giving it a B+. I think it is a little bit better than what we got with the last episode. It reminded me more of the classic Ultraman and Johnny Sokka shows more than the previous one. But again, they're on the right path here. And as we'll discuss here with episode 9, I think they are finally starting to find their groove. And so that's kind of a spoiler alert as to kind of what I think about episode 9. But hopefully, as we move further into the series, that they continue this trend. Because if they do, yeah, we're going to continue to have problems with logic and goofy stuff. But if they can make it fun, I'm willing to go with it. So I gave it a B+.
Yeah, and like what DeWiggins one here said, they love Spectreman, that the Overlords get better basically at as the whole series keeps going. So just keep watching, and awesome show for its time. And then, of course, he also mentioned today's generation thinks too hard. It's a kid's show for Japan. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what they accept there in Japan for their children anyways is a lot more than what you're going to find over here. Even though one could argue, looking back on some cartoons in the 80s and 90s, that it's kind of interesting how they let certain things go, but not to the degree that the Japanese let go, not just in decades past, but even today. So, With that being said, episode 9, titled "The Terrifying," and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so I'm going to do the best. Nezubiran.
Mine is titled "Beware the Giant Rat," Part 1, Sudden Fear.
Beware the Giant Rat. All right. So tell us what happens here.
Yeah, so episode 9 starts out with a family in a small Japanese village, and I would say just about a minute or so it gets some mysterious creature. You only just hear the screeching noise and wreaks havoc upon this village, and then we get to see the pollution G-Men team traveling out in the countryside of Japan there, and Joji, Rita, and I forget the one guy's name, get turned off in one route, basically not going the same route as the head guy of the team itself there, and they pretty much sort of get lost, travel over this one bridge, kind of in this one ravine, and you can tell with the shot how it was made. You know that there's something's gonna happen with the bridge later on, and you basically that's the case. So spoilers on that one there. And they stumble upon this village where you see this farmer just going nuts with a rifle or a shotgun.
That was
just
funny.
like at least maybe a minute worth of shot where you just see him going in different areas, like different shots of him in different angles, like just yelling, running towards something there.
It's like
and then
the guy sketch.
and then they stumble upon this one woman where they were looking inside a house, which she was kind of bumbling around, but then just suddenly drops dead. And then they look around, and then they spot this two-headed giant rat, which somehow can fly.
You know what? Because I've seen a couple of different Ultraman series. I've seen Ultra Q. I've seen Iron King. I mean, I've seen enough Tokusatsu to where it's like, look, dude, this isn't even the craziest
Kamen Rider,
like monster or villain that I've seen.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get to see Dr. Gore and Karas in this episode. I think they only were around for about a couple or so minutes, and then they create a artificial storm for just concentrated around this specific village, and then you had a bunch of lightning, rain, and all that, and then some of the lightning explodes, destroys this bridge that goes in between this huge ravine there, and then you had the leader along with a couple other guys of the pollution G team come right up to this bridge that was destroyed, that's in this ravine, and then they also spot this two-headed rat kaiju that was also chasing. Yeah, is a Beyond. I don't know. I'm just calling it a giant two-headed rat.
You can call it Nezu.
In this one here, where it was chasing Joji, Rita, and the other guy. They had spotted this injured kid in this house, and they were sort of trapped by this giant rat. And then it was trying to get in, eating the roof and everything. And then they escaped from this house, and they go into this cave. And I like this part where the guy says, "I'll run, distract the giant rat or whichever," and then Joji is like, "I need to get out of here so I can get in contact with Overlord and all that." And then the guy was about to go, and then Joji just bitch slaps the guy unconscious.
This episode has some crazy stuff in it. I liked some of the dialogue in this episode. There was one point where I can't remember. I think it might have been Joji, where the Nezubiron was chomping away at the roof of this one cottage, and he was saying it thinks it's a piece of cheese, and I'm like, then that's one stupid rat, because that's not cheese. And then there was one where the boss of the climate organization is like, oh man, it's like midnight, and then one of his employees says, no, but it's only 4:30, and then the boss responds, I know that, you fool. It's like, I mean, was this intentionally written to be funny? Or
I don't know, but it could be like around the winter time where it gets dark at around that time.
I know that, you fool. Like, it's so funny. But
yeah. And then you get this sort of weird chase scene after Joji makes a run for it. He drives in the car, and like you see sequences where he does donuts around this muddy dirt construction area here. And he's like, oh, I think I lost it. Oh, it can fly too.
That's like some Will Ferrell stuff going on there. Yeah. I have to say, okay, as silly as some of the stuff we've talked about so far have been, my favorite by far of this episode and so far of this series has been when you have Joji, Rita, and the other guy in the car, and they're like supposed to be driving over rough terrain.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this one, and I noticed this too. Just the one little.
Why don't you tell them?
Is that when you see them kind of supposedly going over the dirt road in some of the scenes while they were driving, you can tell it towards the one of the corners. I would say
Joji's right shoulder.
Right corner. Yeah, Joji's right shoulder. They see the same tree in the background, but you don't see it moving.
Nope, it's not moving.
That's the one production oopsie.
It's just a bunch of guys on the outside shaking the car. I mean, that's all it is. And I'm going, oh, guys, did nobody see that tree? I mean, it's just.
I know there's some instances too. I think it was in some of the past episodes. I would say in the first few, and then I'm sort of guessing in sort of a handful of other episodes, or I'm probably thinking of one of the Kamen Rider episodes that you can see the cameraman and some of the other staff.
Oh yeah,
and when there's bright sun, you can see their shadow.
Well, yeah, when we talked about the batch of Kamen Rider episodes about 3 weeks ago, I had mentioned in one of the episodes that involved sunglasses. They did one or two close-up shots at the very beginning of the episode, and you could see the film crew in the reflection of the sunglasses, which, yeah, to me that's an oopsie. But to me that's not funny necessarily. It's kind of slightly cringeworthy. But the car staying in place, and then you have a tree in the right shoulder, and that to me is funny.
I mean, they should have seen that, because particularly in post production, you should have at least have seen that, or at least have some kind of technology on hand with it being made. I forget what specific studio did Spectreman. Fuji Television Network, and then it says P Productions. So I don't know how wealthy P Productions was at the time, but I know with Fuji Television is one of the major networks over in Japan, you would think they would at least have some kind of money or technology to maybe do a little bit of touch up in that area.
Again, it all goes back to what we even kind of said at the top of this show, in that when it comes to Japanese TV series, and more specifically this type of TV series, it goes all the way back to Ultraman. I don't know how accurate it is for shows of today, but for the 60s, 70s, I think even in the 80s, it was okay, you sign a contract with a network for X amount of episodes, but then you're supposed to get them done by a certain time, which means that you're literally working on anywhere from one, if not multiple episodes, just even in a given day. Because you don't have a whole lot of time to put stuff together. And there have even been multiple shots where maybe they'll shoot in a similar location, but maybe a small bit apart from one another. And so they're going to shoot sequences for the one episode, and then they'll move over here to shoot sequences for another. The production time for these types of shows is very, very short. I mean, it's because I've read part of Eiji Tsuburai's biography by August Rigoni, and it's very stress-inducing because you're trying to make sure you follow through on this contract. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe you don't get the funding anymore, and I don't know exactly what the punishment would be. But
I'm certain it's probably sort of still that way today, especially from what I've been seeing in the recent Ultraman shows. I'm assuming that they're already starting to go into production with the next series for Ultraman to be released for next year, with Ultraman Decker already being broadcasted since middle of July, just a few months ago, and it's going to be wrapping up as far as the streaming or broadcasting. I think towards the end of the year, and then I think next year early next year they're gonna start announcing the next Ultraman for it to start broadcasting around the same time in July. Basically every year. It's always been that way for as long as I can remember for the past several years.
They're doing significantly fewer episodes now than they were doing back in the day. Okay?
Well, I would say for the reasons that they put a lot more visual effects into it this time,
which means it takes more time.
Compared to during those times.
Exactly. That's my point, is that instead of doing 54 episodes or whatever, they're doing like 12. And then those 12, you film maybe over a period of 3 to 4 months, something like that.
Well, they're still doing 24 here.
Still kind of quick, but a bit more doable, but you're not done. Whereas here, you have to be done by like 1 or 2 days with everything. Now it's like, okay, fewer episodes, but still kind of a short film progress, but you're not completely done. We're giving you 365 days to finish everything. And so it is different now. Technically, they are giving them more time to do it. Back in 71 and 72, not so much.
It's like I think this time around, with it being, as far as making things a little bit different, they do it a year ahead of time. Whereas back then they had to do it, they get a short notice and then have to do it within a certain amount of time. Yes. Kind of like with some of the Godzilla films, I'd say with the success of Gojira in 1954, you had basically within 6 months, you had the sequel come out where they had a very short amount of time to do.
Yeah, well, and again, that was a quick cash grab. I mean, you saw it with Son of Kong. Stop motion. They had that thing out within 6 months after the original Kong.
And then with the 10th anniversary of Godzilla, you had not only Mothra versus Godzilla, but also Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, come out at the same time. And I think they did those movies, I would say, simultaneously with short amount of time.
Well, yeah, that 64 is a year in which you had Honda do 3 films. You had Mothra versus Godzilla, then I think it was Dogora came next, and then it was Ghidra. And as you watch, if you watch the movies in that order, you see them progressively get worse. Because the timetable is so short. Like Honda literally was moving from one science fiction movie to the next, and he used, for example, Hiroshi Koizumi in all 3 of those films.
Mhm.
Okay, so like you're literally moving around, having to quickly put together. Eiji Tsuburaya and his crew, of course, are quickly moving around and trying to get things put together. Okay, we're done with Mothra versus Godzilla. Now we got to quickly get some things put together so we can do Dogora. Oh, crap. Now we're going back to Godzilla. Let's, focus on that. Yeah, I mean, it was very fast, haphazard, and a mess.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, at least this time around, in the modern day sort of sense, I think they sort of learned their lessons on those things with the ups and downs, so they kind of do things a little bit more as a year in advance, sort of thing, sort of doing the same things, but yeah, a year and ahead. But let's dive right back into Spectreman here. I think we were getting sidetracked from what we were discussing about. But yeah, as I mentioned, as far as the giant rat chasing Joji in that weird looking car scene and all that, evidently Joji finds the Nebula or Overlord, and Overlord orders him to defeat the giant rat here as Spectreman confronts the kaiju, severs the 2 heads, and then Joji turns back into his normal self. Thought he beats the giant rat, but it generates the heads again, and that's sort of where episode 9 leaves off. So we're gonna see more of I don't know what's the rat's name in episode 10.
Probably Nezubiron, I would assume. just Nezubiron. But yeah, I do like this episode. I mean, I guess I might as well go into the final thoughts because we've already done a fair amount of discussion on it. But
although with quite a bit of sidetracking.
Well, we were trying to put context to something, but some of that stuff in my notes here, I'll just kind of go off the cuff again, like I did with the last episode. I enjoyed it. Again, it's reminded me an awful lot of the classic Ultraman and the Johnny Sacco stuff. And to me, that's a very good thing. That means it's a show that is a lot of fun and it brings back very good memories. I still look at that original 65 Ultraman series as the best tokusatsu I have seen so far in terms of TV series. And there have been some other good ones. I mean, we had fun with Iron King. Iron King, though, definitely was incredibly flawed, but it was still fun in its own way.
Yeah, it was the first 5 or 6 episodes where it was sort of the same way that Spectreman was going the first few episodes, and then they finally found their footing, and then it just got really exciting from there.
Yeah, and I've seen Super Robot Red Baron. Red Baron is fun, but it to me is not. It doesn't quite have some of the charm that the original Ultraman has. Ultra 7 to me is a mess. It's got good effects, but other than that, I can't really say I enjoy the series. I found it to be very frustrating to go through. And there's just been a few others that I've watched. Some I've enjoyed quite a bit, others not so much. And this, thankfully, is starting to go into the realm of that original Ultraman series. And like I've said a couple times so far this episode, I'm really hoping that this continues, that this trend continues for the show, because I have been a little frustrated with the series, not overly frustrated, but just enough to where I'm kind of getting a little anxious about it, kind of like, okay, when are you going to figure this out? And episode 9 and really this whole block of episodes is really well done. And I don't mean well done in that it's high quality writing and filmmaking. No, it's high quality in that it's entertaining. And that's what I want out of this sort of thing. I want to be entertained, even though there may be some stupid stuff in it. And in fact, at times that stupid stuff can add an extra element of fun to it. And like Karis pushing people's heads into their body once again. Always going to go back to that. And
Although he hasn't done that for the last several episodes.
He's only done that once, and I'm sure he probably won't do it again, sadly. But, I'm enjoying it. This whole block has been entertaining. I really hope it continues. This was a fun episode. I liked the Nezubiron. The death of Nezubiron was gruesome, which again is fun. Because we saw some gruesome deaths with Ultraman and some of the other tokusatsu shows we've covered and discussed. I gave this one an A. I think it's fun episode. The car staying in place while having people on the outside bounce it around, hilarious. I mean, I like that so much, and I can't help but to laugh with it and to have fun with it as a result.
Yeah, with this episode 9, it sort of feels a little bit the same as episode 7, but without Overlord trying to make any suggestions of sacrificing anybody this time around. So at least that's sort of a change here. Sort like what?
Yeah, we didn't talk about the Overlords this time.
Like what DeWiggins mentioned about earlier with the Overlord getting better over time. So fingers crossed. Even though I've watched this many years ago, it's been long ago, so I've sort of forgotten how some of the things have turned out. But we'll have to go from there. Yeah, so it's a little bit the same as episode 7, although I sort of felt myself sort of lingering off a little bit and doing a little bit of things while the episode was going. So I don't know if it was just me, because it seemed like
I think it is
parts of middle of the episode, like it sort of felt a little bit boring at times, particularly when
there was so much goofiness to be had. Like
yes, there was some goofiness, but for some reason it just felt like there not a whole lot going on.
I disagree.
In the middle of the episode compared to the first 2 episodes that we've discussed today. But at least the good thing is that no Overlord sacrificing anybody here. And at least get to see the giant rat getting killed off, but then regenerating its head to continue on in part 2 for episode 10 for next time. So with that said, I'm going to at least give episode 9 a B.
Oh man, to me this is probably my favorite Spectreman episode so far. I love it. I think there's a lot going on here.
And as DeWiggins here, he mentions that Space Giants and Johnny Sacco and his Flying Robot are great. Grew up with those shows and everything. So yeah, if you watched our reviews on Johnny Sacco and his Flying Robot that we've done a couple of years ago, I would suggest watching that. And I know we've mentioned about Space Giants. I think Kent mentioned more about them, but one of these days I would like to get around to it.
I gave you one of my Space Giants collection, so that is something we could do.
Yeah, I do have that.
I did. It was either an 18 or 17. I dabbled in the first maybe 4 episodes. It was a Space Giants. It was hard to tell because the collection I gave you did not have any chapter separations or anything like that. It just was one long continuous thing of Space Giants, and you could maybe tell where episodes ended and then began, but it wasn't clear. So I did watch it for a little while, but I got a little tired of it simply because the DVDs of it that I had didn't separate them. It just kept going, and there was nothing that authoritatively said, okay, this episode is done, now we're starting a new one, etc. So that is one I do want to go back to. But yeah, technically I did watch like the first 3 or 4 episodes of that 4 or 5 years ago, and what I did like was fun and good. It's just the copies of the DVDs I had were not the best in terms of separating everything out. Was the problem.
My Spectreman DVD isn't quite as good either. I mean, one of these days I'll have to bring my DVD over and show you the title screens and the chapter screens.
You could even show me with your computer.
Well, I would have to show it on my TV because I only have a DVD drive or anything on this computer. I would need an external drive, but yeah, I should at least take a picture of it and show it to you. You'll be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, my Spectreman DVDs are actually really good. I mean, it's pretty good quality stuff, so I don't have that problem, thankfully.
I would say mine is on a whole other level.
I can imagine, because guess what? If it's anything like the Space Giant ones that I gave you, I know exactly where it's going. Like I know where it's going. But yeah, it's thank you so much, D. Wiggins, for. There's a channel where separate episodes remastered. Might have to check that out because, yeah, the new set of DVDs I got. I could tell the picture is a little bit better, but it's not night and day better, but it is better.
I think the one that you gave me, I think I might have seen it a few years ago. That I believe it was okay at times.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to Spectreman. I mean, the quality of the episodes, 2 or 3 of the episodes of my Spectreman here were not the best. Like the movements of the characters were kind of choppy, like they would move, but then you would get this weird chop effect as they would move. And it was hard to watch at points.
In my Kamen Rider DVD that I have, I would say there was at least 1 or 2 episodes where it was practically screen captured off of another software. You can definitely tell because you can tell the window border around the software that was coming from a Mac computer, because you can definitely tell, the whole software programs with the border around it. If you're on a Mac, it has the close, minimize, and then expand buttons on one of the top corners.
That's interesting. I have not run into that with mine.
I think it was just 1 or 2 episodes. I haven't seen it since.
Wow.
Yeah. and then one of the episodes with the subtitles, that they're baked in.
They're baked in.
I think it was in the opening title where they do the subtitle for the like the songs and everything.
Different.
Instead of the actual italic text and everything, they had them in the bracket eyes, whereas the HTML standing for italic.
I had them with italics. Then I've also had them in blue. And then I've also had them in the HTML brackets as well. I've had like 3 different ones for
like most of my subtitles so far were in white color, but I think just in that one specific episode with the intro, it was green for some reason.
So was Kamen Rider green when the bomb blew up and then the wind from the bomb hit his turbine belt and turned into Kamen Rider?
I don't know.
Have to do an experiment. But with that, is there anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, if you like what we're doing, and if you're watching us on
and thank you so much for
YouTube,
joining us, D. Wiggins. We like having you and everybody else join us.
and for getting cut off there. If you watch us
Thank you for joining us.
If you watch us on YouTube or anything, make sure to smash that like button, as well as if you see the red subscribe button down below, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you can get notifications, as well as hit that notification bell to make sure to know whenever we broadcast live or upload any new videos in the future. And then you can find us everywhere, even all in one place at our Linktree page there, Linktree/Daikaiju Network. And as far as video platforms, besides YouTube, we're also on Twitch and Facebook Live, where we stream live at the same time at those places. And then as far as Rumble, our episodes that we stream live are available there the following day. And then we have our audio versions of our episodes on audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And we both have video and audio versions of our episodes over our own website at daikaijunetwork.com.
Website that, other than podcasts, we never really update with new content.
Well, we tried to add some bit of different content on there, but it's just mainly our episode archive.
I mean, we got to store these somewhere.
Yeah. And that's kind of where our audio versions of the podcast get broadcasted out, is through our website. So,
yeah. All right. With that, thank you so much for listening or watching us. And we will be back in a couple of weeks to do another batch of 3 Kamen Rider episodes. And hopefully we will have some more fun with those.
All right. Catch you guys in a couple of weeks.